Have you ever felt completely alone, not because you failed, but because you chose to rise? That's the unspoken truth of leadership. The moment you decide to lead, you step into a world that most people will never understand. Leaders don't choose loneliness. Loneliness chooses them. When you take the first step towards something bigger, whether it's building a business, standing up for what's right, or chasing a vision no one else can see, you naturally separate yourself from the crowd. The comfort of following is easy, it's warm, it's safe. You have people beside you walking the same road, nodding in agreement. But the moment you decide to take a different path, the noise fades. The crowd thins. The hands that once clapped for you hesitate. That's when reality sets in. Leadership isn't just about guiding others, it's about enduring moments of doubt alone. It's about standing firm when support disappears, pushing forward when encouragement turns to silence. Because the higher you climb, the fewer people there are who can understand the view. But here's the thing, that loneliness isn't a curse. It's proof that you're moving in the right direction. The moment you decide to lead, you separate yourself from the crowd. Not because you want to, but because leadership demands it. Stepping up means stepping away, not out of arrogance, but out of necessity. Growth forces you to leave behind what no longer serves you. The conversations that once excited you now feel shallow. The people who once cheered for you may no longer understand your vision. You're not rejecting them, you're evolving. Think of a mountain climber. At the base, it's crowded. People gather, they laugh, they share the same space. But as the climber ascends, the crowd thins. The air gets thinner. The path narrows. Not because the climber wants to be alone, but because few are willing to make the climb. Leadership works the same way. The higher you go, the fewer people can go with you. Not everyone is willing to endure the discomfort of growth. Not everyone is ready to let go of familiarity for the sake of something greater. So don't take it personally. This isn't about losing people, it's about gaining clarity. You're not stepping away to leave people behind. You're stepping away to become the person you were meant to be. How many people do you think are willing to endure the weight of responsibility? To carry the burden of making tough decisions, standing alone in moments of uncertainty, and pushing forward despite fear? Not many. That's why so few ever reach true leadership. Most people choose comfort over challenge. They want success without struggle, recognition without sacrifice. But elevation comes with a price. When you rise, you leave behind the safety of the crowd. You stop being understood by those who once related to you. You become the person they question, the one they don't quite recognize anymore. That's the cost. And it's a heavy one. But here's what separates leaders from the rest. They accept it. They embrace the discomfort. They understand that the road to something greater isn't lined with applause, it's lined with moments of doubt, sacrifice, and isolation. A true leader walks alone not because they have to. Because the responsibility is too great to be shared with those who don't carry the same vision. This isn't meant to discourage you. It's meant to prepare you. Did you feel later this path, it means you're on the right one. There's a moment in every leader's journey where they have to make a choice. Stay where it's safe or break away into the unknown. This is the power move. It's the moment you stop waiting for approval and start walking your own path. The moment you stop fearing loneliness and start embracing it as part of your evolution. The moment you realize that breaking away from the familiar isn't abandonment, it's alignment. Look at the eagle. It doesn't fly in flocks and soars alone high above the rest. Not because it's better, but because it was built for higher altitudes. If it stayed on the ground, it would never reach its full potential. You are no different. The solitude you feel isn't a punishment. It's preparation. It's shaping you, refining you, making you strong enough to carry the weight of leadership. Because here's the truth, those who are meant to follow you will find you. But first you have to be willing to walk alone. So step forward, step away, make the power move. Because the future isn't waiting for you, it's calling you. And only those bold enough to break away will answer. How many times have you shared your dreams only to be met with doubt? How many times have you laid out a vision only to be told it's impossible? This is the curse of seeing what others can't. Leaders operate in a different world. You see potential where others see limitations. You see opportunities where others see dead ends. It's like holding the blueprint to a skyscraper while everyone else only sees an empty lot. They can't imagine the finished building because they've never built one themselves. That's what separates visionaries from the rest. Most people need proof before they believe. They need results before they trust. But a leader sees before anything exists. A leader believes before there's evidence. This is why most people won't understand you. Not because your vision is flawed, but because their thinking is limited. They live in a world of seeing is believing. You live in a world where believing is the first step to making things real. And that's not easy. It's frustrating. It's isolating. It makes you question yourself. But understand this, if everyone could see what you see, it wouldn't be called vision. It would just be common sense. They won't see it, they won't get it, they won't believe it. And that's exactly how it has always been. Every great leader, every world changer, every person who ever built something extraordinary faced resistance before recognition. Steve Jobs was called a dreamer. Martin Luther King Jr. was called a troublemaker. The Wright brothers were laughed at for believing man could fly. The pattern is always the same. First, they doubt you. Then they ridicule you. Then they resist you. And finally, when the vision becomes real, they act like they believed in you all along. Why? Because most people can only accept what already exists. They cannot grasp what hasn't been built yet. That's why leaders always walk a lonely road before others follow. This is your journey. If you're misunderstood, you're in good company. If they're laughing now, history proves they won't be laughing later. The same people who doubt you today will quote you tomorrow. But only if you keep moving forward. Leaders who depend on approval never lead, they follow. The biggest trap for visionaries is waiting for permission. You want people to see what you see. You want them to support you. You want them to say, yes, this makes sense. But they won't. Because it doesn't make sense to them yet. Imagine a pilot flying through fog. They can't rely on what they see. They have to trust their instruments. If they start asking passengers for directions, they crash. So that's what leadership is like. You have to trust your vision, even when it's unclear to everyone else. You have to hold your course, even when people tell you to turn back. Because the moment you start needing validation, you give up control. You let their doubts become your doubts. You let their fears become your fears. Stop waiting for the world to confirm what you already know. If you see it, that's enough. If you believe in it, that's enough. Let them catch up later. If you've been misunderstood, good. That means you're ahead. The moment they understand is the moment they follow. But before that, before they see the results, they will question you, they will doubt you. They will resist you. But think about if Inc. already understood your vision, it wouldn't be a vision. It would just be something obvious. And if it's obvious, it's not leadership. You have to be willing to stand alone in the early days. You have to be willing to believe when no one else does. Because leadership isn't about waiting for the world to agree. It's about moving forward even when they don't. So the question is, are you willing to be misunderstood long enough to make your vision real? Are you willing to keep going, even when they don't see it yet? Because you are one day they'll look back and say they always knew you'd succeed. And by then you won't need their approval anyway. What if the people you started with aren't meant to finish with you? Growth comes with a price. And one of the biggest costs, separation. The reality is the higher you climb, the fewer people can breathe at your altitude. Think of a mountain. At the base it's crowded. Anyone can stand there, it's easy. The air is thick and there's no real challenge. But as you climb higher, the air gets thinner. The pressure increases. It takes strength, endurance, and resilience just to keep going. Not everyone can handle that. Not everyone is built for the climb. And yet, too many people try to drain their entire past up the mountain with them. They hold on to friendships, environments, and mindsets that can't survive at high altitudes. They slow themselves down, struggling under the weight of relationships that were never meant to last the entire journey. Here's the truth: some people can only walk with you to a certain point. It doesn't mean they were never important. It doesn't mean they were never valuable. It just means their part in your journey has ended. If you refuse to accept this, you will suffocate at the top trying to carry people who were never meant to climb that high. The higher you climb, the fewer people can breathe at your altitude. Growth isn't something you can undo. Once your mind expands, once your vision sharpens, once your purpose becomes clear, there is no going back. But here's the struggle. Growth often leaves you feeling like a stranger in the places that once felt like home. The conversations that used to excite you now seem small. The habits you once enjoyed feel empty. The people you once connected with no longer understand the way you think. And that realization is painful. There's a part of you that wants to go back to fit in, to reconnect. But the truth is, you've changed. And no matter how much you try, you can't unlearn what you now know. Think of a rocket. It needs boosters to take off, but once it reaches a certain height, those boosters fall away. Not because they were useless, but because they were only designed for the first part of the journey. If the rocket tried to hold on to them and never reach orbit, you're past your old circles. Your former way of thinking, those were your boosters. They got you started, but they weren't built to take you where you're going next. So stop trying to return to something you've already outgrown. Move forward even if it means leaving behind what once felt familiar. Loyalty is powerful, but loyalty to the wrong things can cost you your future. Many people stay stuck not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, but because they refuse to let go of what no longer serves them. They confuse loyalty with attachment. They think staying connected to old relationships, old mindsets, and old environments is a sign of faithfulness. But real loyalty is to your purpose, to your past. Ask yourself this: are you staying in certain relationships because they align with where you're headed? Or are you staying because you feel guilty for outgrowing them? There's a difference between walking away from people and walking away from your purpose. Holding on to the wrong things doesn't make you loyal, it makes you stuck. Stop shrinking yourself to fit places you've already outgrown. Stop slowing your progress to make others comfortable. If someone truly cares about you, they won't ask you to stay the same just to make them feel better. True loyalty is about honoring the calling on your life, even when it means walking away from what's familiar. You can't hold on to everything and reach for something greater. Growth isn't just about gaining, it's about losing. Losing comfort, losing approval, losing the version of yourself that no longer fits the life you're building. And yet too many people fear endings. They see them as failure. They resist letting go because they think it means they've abandoned something important. But what if the very thing you're afraid to let go of is what's holding you back? Some doors need to close so you can walk through the cakewalk ones. Some relationships need to fade so you can make space for better ones. Some habits need to die so new discipline can take root. This isn't rejection. This isn't punishment. This is the cost of becoming who you were meant to be. So stop fearing necessary endings. Embrace them. They are not the end of your journey. They are the beginning of something greater. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's focus. Too many people confuse being alone with being lost. They think if no one is around, something must be wrong. But what if your next level requires you to disappear? What if isolation isn't a punishment but a preparation? Loneliness is a void. It's a feeling of lack. But solitude is a strategy. It's a choice. It's the decision to step away from the noise, to silence the distractions, to get locked in on a goal so intensely that nothing else matters. Look around you. How many people waste their days drowning in distractions, scrolling, checking, comparing, reacting, never thinking, never building, never creating? They fear silence because in silence they have to face themselves. But the truth is, every great leader, innovator, every game changer has mastered the art of being alone. Because when you step away from distractions, you step into focus. And when you step into focus, you step into power. So here's the real question: are you avoiding solitude, or are you afraid of what it will force you to face? Before the greatest fights, champions train in silence. Before the biggest wins, leaders into preparation. This is the truth most people miss before success is seen. It is built in the dark. A boxer doesn't step into the ring without months of brutal training behind closed doors. A writer doesn't publish a masterpiece without hours of unseen struggle with a blank page. A visionary doesn't change the world by staying in the spotlight. They retreat, they sharpen, they reemerge stronger than ever. But most people don't want to do that. They crave the attention, the feedback, the constant interaction. They don't want to disappear because they're addicted to being seen. Let me tell you something: if you need the world to watch you while you work, you'll never do anything worth watching. Every great leader understands this. Solitude is where mastery happens. It's where your weaknesses get exposed and eliminated. It's where you build the mental strength to endure the pressure that success brings. So if you feel the pull to step away, trust it. That silence you fear might be the very thing preparing you for your breakthrough. If you can't sit in silence, you'll never hear your own vision. Most people will never reach their potential not because they lack talent, but because they lack focus. They've trained their minds to chase every distraction, to react to every notification, to crave every ounce of social approval. And in doing so, they've lost the ability to sit still, think deeply, and build something real. Distraction is the enemy of greatness. It doesn't just steal your time, it steals your ability to create. Think of a blacksmith forging a blade. The metal must endure intense heat, relentless hammering, and constant refinement before it becomes sharp enough to cut. That's what focused isolation does for a leader. It forces you to face the pressure, to withstand the heat, to be shaped into something stronger. But most people won't endure it. They'd rather be entertained than be sharpened. They'd rather scroll than struggle. And that's why they never rise. So ask yourself this: are you building, or are you just busy? Are you sharpening your vision, or are you just filling your time? Because if you truly want to reach your highest level, you don't need more noise. You need more silence. The world only sees the results, never the isolation it took to get there. Every breakthrough, every success story, every champion you admire has one thing in common: they stepped away before they stepped up. They disappeared into work. They vanished into focus. They chose solitude not because they were weak, but because they knew that's where strength is built. The question is, will you do the same? Will you keep seeking validation, waiting for approval, hoping that someone else gives you permission to chase what's already inside you? The power move isn't about waiting, it's about stepping away. It's about getting so locked in that when you return, people don't even recognize you. So this is your challenge: carve out intentional solitude, cut out the distractions, disappear into your purpose. Because if you do, when you reemerge, you won't just be better, you'll be unstoppable. Why are you apologizing for being different? Why are you explaining your vision to people who don't even understand their own? A lion doesn't explain itself to sheep. It just moves. It doesn't wait for approval. It doesn't ask if its roar is too loud. It doesn't shrink to make others comfortable. It owns its space. It walks with power. That's what leadership isn't about, getting people to agree with you. It's about standing firm in your vision even when no one else sees it yet. It's about making decisions based on purpose, not permission. But most people don't do that. They wait, they justify. They water down their ideas so they don't offend anyone. They shrink themselves to fit into spaces they've outgrown. That stops today. If you are waiting for people to approve of your leadership, you are not leading. You are following. True leaders don't seek agreement. They move and the world adjusts. So stop explaining, stop defending, start leading. Leaders don't apologize for making bold choices. They don't explain their every move. They decide, they act, and they own the outcome. But too many people hesitate. They worry about what others will think. They try to make everyone happy. And in the process, they make no real decisions at all. Let me tell you something: if you let every opinion sway you, you'll never reach the shore. Leadership is like steering a ship. The captain doesn't stop to every passenger for permission before sail. They know the destination, they trust the course. They adjust when necessary, but they never surrender control. Because a leader who tries to please everyone leads no one. You will be misunderstood. You will be criticized. You will make decisions that others don't like. That's part of the job. But here's the truth: when you stop justifying your greatness, the world has no choice but to accept it. So stop looking for permission. Stop waiting for approval. Make the decision. Own it. Move forward. If you need everyone to agree with you, are you really leading? Leaders are not guided by consensus. They are guided by conviction. The greatest leaders in history weren't the waiting for approval. They weren't the ones who needed validation before taking action. They were the ones who stood firm, who moved forward even when they were the only ones walking. A lone wolf doesn't wait for the pack. It moves first. It hunts first. It sets the course that others will eventually follow. But most people are afraid to stand alone. They fear isolation. They want reassurance. They want someone to say, yes, you're doing the right thing. But leadership doesn't work that way. You don't need agreement. You don't need applause. You need courage. Because the world doesn't follow the ones who blend in. It follows the ones who dare to stand apart. So step forward. Own your vision. Let them doubt you now, they'll understand later. Stop apologizing. Stop explaining. Start leading. Leadership isn't about waiting. It's about moving. It's about stepping into your power without hesitation. It's about owning your decisions without fear. No more asking for permission. No more seeking approval. No more explaining why you think differently. You know what you need to do. You know where you're headed. Now it's time to act. So here's the challenge: will you keep shrinking, keep justifying, keep waiting? Or will you step into leadership without apology? The choice is yours. But remember this: leaders don't wait. They lead. Leadership isn't something you're given, it's something you choose. Most people will never make that choice. They will choose comfort over challenge, approval over independence, and security over growth. They will stay in the crowd because the crowd is safe. They will follow because following is easy. But a true leader walks alone, not because they want to, but because they have to. This is the cost of seeing what others don't, the price of making decisions when no one else is willing to, the weight of carrying a vision before the world believes in it. That's why most people avoid leadership. It's too heavy, it's too uncertain, it's too lonely. But that's also why leadership is rare, because only a few are willing to bear that weight. Only a few are willing to step up when no one else will. So ask yourself, are you willing to make that choice? Or will you let the fear of walking alone keep you from stepping into who you were meant to be? The world doesn't need more followers. It needs more leaders willing to walk alone. If you feel like you're standing on your own, If you feel like the people around you don't understand your path anymore, that's not failure. That's proof that you're growing. Leadership is like a road. The further you go, the narrower it gets. The people who started with you won't always be there at the finish line, not because they don't care, not because they weren't important, but because they weren't meant to go where you're going. And that's okay, because loneliness isn't a sign that you're lost. It's a sign that you're moving forward. It's a sign that you're stepping into something bigger than the life you once knew. So don't fear the distance between you and the crowd. That distance is what separates those who dream from those who lead. This is it. The moment of truth. Will you make the power move, or will you stay where it's comfortable? Will you choose to lead knowing the road is lonely, the weight is heavy, and the path is uncertain? Or will you stay in the crowd waiting for approval, watching from the sidelines, never stepping into your full potential level? The choice is yours. But remember this, leaders don't wait. Leaders don't hesitate. Leaders walk alone, not because they want to, but because they are destined to. So what will you do? Step up or step aside?